Welcome back, everyone, to Lab 1, Sheet 1. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Share my screen. Get rid of this. All right, so go ahead and open up your AutoCAD and also pull up your Windows Explorer to the folder that I sent you, the CAD 154 course folder that I had sent you. And in that folder, I know I've talked a little bit about it in the intro video, as well as we overwrote that old title block file in the title block creation video that you should have watched already. If you haven't watched that, you will have a title block here. However, it's going to be the old style title block, so you're not going to be able to use it the way that we're going to use it in the video to plot at the end of the drawing. So if you haven't watched the title block video, go ahead and watch that, because you're not going to be able to complete the first lab without watching that first. So go ahead and open up this folder. Like I said, I talked about it a little bit in the intro video, but go ahead and drill into Lab 1 and open up Lab 1 assignment. So I have that open right here. And this is what it's going to look like. So this is what we're going to be drawing today. You've already created the title block. Essentially all we're doing is this kind of polygon shape, this offset polygon shape. And in order to do that, I have also provided you the Lab 1 lesson plan. So this is, here, let me bring that in now, make it a little bigger for you. So this is actually what I used to teach from when I first started teaching at Hack about 5 years ago. I started creating these lesson plans, and I thought I don't have them for every single lecture, because and I see there's a typo right there. I think I used to have 2L and 0.2 width. I think that's why I had that in there. Anyways, so I've created these lesson plans, and I just thought, like, getting into the first lab, I felt that this was kind of helpful, just going over some of the overall, like, the setup stuff. So, if you're on lab 3 and you want to make sure your settings are all still correct, or, what were the snap settings, that kind of thing, you can come in here, the object snap, for example, endpoint, midpoint, center. We set this up in the title block video, but in the event that you want to make sure that all your settings are still good, I felt that this was good to provide you. So this is in the Lab 1 folder. It also has instructions on how to create the title block template. However, it's the same title block, essentially. I mean, it's still the same outline, the same block at the bottom, 2 inches by 0.5, 2 inches by 0.2, down in the bottom right corner. That being said, this was how to set it up in Model Space. So the process that I have showed you in the title block creation video is a little bit different from this. However, this gives you a good idea, just to come back and reference how to go ahead and create that again. So these are the tools that we're going to learn today in this lab, and we're going to extrapolate on these over the next few weeks, and learn some more advanced functionality within these tools, as well as expand our knowledge of the library and the tool library in AutoCAD. Now, these 14 instructions right here are actually exactly what you'll type into your computer to draw what you just saw in Lab 1. So that's in the Lab 1 assignment. So those 14 instructions, we're going to give you exactly this, plotted exactly at this location on the page. This also talks about plotting. This X can actually be much larger. With the new curriculum, this is not how we're going to be plotting anymore. We don't have to set all these settings every time. I talked about it to extent in the title block video, but just as a refresher, these settings are all already custom set up by default in the template that we created together. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So open up your AutoCAD. Now, in the course folder, copy the title block that you made yesterday don't move this anywhere. Leave this out in the main portion of the folder, just because this is going to be your master template that you can use every single week for all of your different drawings, and you're never going to have to recreate it. So what you can do is just Control C, or alternatively, you can right click and click copy. Go up into Lab 1, Submissions, and Control V or right click and paste, and drop that file in here. Then first thing, before we even open it, we're going to rename it, and it's going to be Lab 1, Sheet 1, and then your initials. My initials are WRM, so that's how I'm going to name this. So Lab 1 dash Sheet 1 dash WRM, my initials is how you're going to label this sheet. For example, in Lab 2, you might have, Lab 2 Sheet 1, Lab 2 Sheet 2, and so on. I'm going to explain that as we move forward with the weekly lab or lecture videos. So now that we have that renamed and in the correct file location for our file management system, which is important, and you'll hear me talk about that throughout the semester, how important file management is, especially once we get into SolidWorks, where each assembly could have 5, 10, 15, 20, even more parts than that. Some assemblies in professional settings, for example, like an engine, would have thousands and thousands of parts. And all of those parts have to be accessible to the file system when you open the assembly, or else you're not going to be able to open it properly. So in AutoCAD, we don't have as much issue with that, but it's still important to maintain a nicely organized file system to make sure you're not losing drawings. So now that we have our title block open, named as our lab, if this up here, if this still says CAD 154 title block AutoCAD, close it and make sure that you have copied it into Lab 1 and renamed it. Because if this still has the title block name here, then you may be drawing your Lab 1 in the master template, which is going to be a kind of a headache later. So the first thing we have to do here, and if you had saved it in model space, just go down here to the bottom left, click on Sheet 1. Just left click on Sheet 1. That'll bring you to paper space here. And click anywhere, just left click anywhere on where you drew your title block. And right after it's selected, right click and click Block Editor. Now, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but your background will change, and I'm actually going to go ahead and turn off my grid here. I don't like to look at the grid in Block Editor. So this little grid button down here that's just highlighted, just go ahead and left click that once, and that's going to turn off your grid. Now, holding the middle mouse wheel and panning your mouse around, that's going to help you. That's going to allow you to kind of center this. And then just go ahead and scroll in to zoom in on this little title block section down here with your text. Double click on your text and edit this first thing. This is going to be Lab 1, Sheet 1. And then everything else should be pre-filled with your name and the class information. So go ahead and up here and click Close Block Editor. And you want to save the changes. And now we have that set up. From here, we're going to go into model space. So go ahead and left click down here in the bottom left corner of the screen. And if you're saved somewhere, if this was really far away, something like that, remember, you can go ahead and double click the middle mouse wheel, and that's going to zoom, what's called zoom extents. You can actually, there is actually a command for that, just so you can understand a little bit better. If you type in zoom enter and then E enter, it's going to do the same operation. It's just going to zoom perfectly to whatever you have drawn. So for example, if I have a circle like way out here in space, if I do that double click middle mouse wheel, it will now zoom me perfectly so that the circle and the rectangle are both at the extents of the page. So go ahead and get yourself zoom extents, double click the middle mouse wheel to get the rectangle that we created yesterday front and center for you. You can even zoom out just a little bit. I'll go ahead and turn my grid back on in this view, just because remember we set those limits yesterday. So this just gives you a little bit more of a nice foundation of where we're actually going to be drawing here in this infinite space. And following the lesson plan, we can see here, we're going to start by using the line command. And actually, I think this is probably a good time to go ahead and talk a little bit about the tools that we're going to be using today. So we're going to be using 6 tools, or 7 tools, I'm sorry. The line tool and the, in parentheses right next to it, these are the keyboard shortcuts. So I make heavy use of the keyboard shortcuts, both in class and professionally. However, I always, at least for the first couple labs, and really throughout the rest, throughout the videos, throughout the first 5 weeks of class, I do show you where it is in the ribbon as well. And then I also verbalize the hotkeys. So what I would say is, if you want to learn the hotkeys, go ahead and like make a list, like get a notebook or something, and then just make a list of all the different commands that I'm going to tell you. And then as you go through the class, you'll just start kind of picking them up. But you can always, any tool that we use, you're going to be able to pick up in the ribbon, which if you watch the title block video, which you should have, you will know that this bar with all these tools and buttons up here, this is called the ribbon. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with a line tool. So you can type L enter, and that's going to get you your line tool. Alternatively, you can come up and click this top left button in the ribbon, is going to be the line, and then you can click anywhere and then click anywhere else, and you can draw a line between those 2 points. So with that being said, I'm going to grab the line tool, and I'm going to type 5.5, 3. And what that is, if we're looking at our grid here, remember yesterday we set this up so that, and I can go into my settings. Now we set our grid up so that there's a faint, like a pretty faint line, like a non-major line every 0.1 inch. And then there's a major line, like a bolded line, grid line every, it's every 5, but really it's every half an inch. So that's what we're seeing here. So if we count, so we just placed the first point of this line at 5.5, 3 on the coordinate plane, starting at this point right here, because remember that's absolute 0 in our coordinate plane. So if we look at this, each of these bold lines is half an inch. So we have 1 inch, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. And then we're up 3. So 1, 2, 3, and we can see where we are in the coordinate plane. Now, the next thing we're going to do is a distance and bearing. So we're going to say 2.5. So that's what we're going to type in. So you don't have to click anything yet. Type 2.5 tab 180. So what's that saying is, it's looking at this point right here, the point where we start our line at 5.5, 3 on the coordinate plane. And it's saying, draw a 2.5 inch line at 180 degrees from this point. So this is now the relative 0 in a new coordinate plane. And that's kind of how AutoCAD keeps track of things. So you can see also, it's keeping track of the distance of my line and the angle of my line. So that's what you can think. So like right now, the distance in the little box there is highlighted in blue. So it's asking me for the distance. Then when I click tab, so if I say 2.5, enter, oops. Let me grab my line again here. 2.5 tab, you can see that then I'm entering the angle. So that is what we're looking at there. And you can also see here the angle only goes to 180 degrees above and below the line. So that's something to keep in mind. If I'm going to redraw our initial line at 5.5, 3, so we're going to start that there. If I want to make a 90-degree line, for example, and I want that line to go straight up, you have to be above the 0-degree mark. If you're below it, it starts that over. So this is 90 degrees below. and this is 90 degrees above. It's not going to ask. I mean, you could type in, like if you're above here and you type in, 320, it'll give you the line down here. But really, you can go above or below the line when you're using distance and bearing entries, and I can show you that right here. So if I want to do a 2-inch line at 90 degrees, if I'm above that horizontal 0 degree angle, and then it's going to give me a line up. If I start right here and I'm below this 0 mark, I'm going to do 2 inches tab 90, and it's going to give me a 90 degree to the bottom. So that'll make more sense as we go along. Anyway, so I'm going to start back at 5.5, 3. I'm going to go 2.5 tab 180. And then our next entry is going to show us about the 90 degree rule here. So I'm staying above the 0 degree mark here. And I'm going to say 3.5 inches at tab 90 degrees. And then I'm going to go ahead and click escape. When you click escape, that gets you out of any command. Honestly, since when you're drafting a lot and you're executing a lot of commands, most of the people I know end up clicking escape 3 or 4 times. It ends up kind of becoming a habit for a lot of drafters. So if you hear me just like hammering on the escape key, that's just kind of a habit. Now at this point, we're going to go back into our line tool. So you can click the line tool up here. Alternatively, you can click L, enter. And we're going to select just one click, one left click. Don't hold it down, just click and release at the bottom right point. Now here we want to draw a 3-inch line at 60 degrees and 60 degrees up. So if we're looking at our drawing, we can see from this 0 line right here, I can draw a line right here. So if this is 0, we are trying to draw a 60 degree line like that. Remember, if your cursor is anywhere below this 0 line, it is going to draw your 60 degree down like this. So we want to make sure our cursor is somewhere up in this area before we execute that next command. So from here, we want to draw a 3.5-inch line. So we're going to say 3.5 tab 60. And there we go. Let me get my lesson plan back up here. And go ahead and click escape again. Now go back into your line command. Click start your line at this top left point. Click that one time. And now we're going to go 4 inches at 0 degrees. So we can say 4 tab 0. Okay, I see what I did. I was talking so much, I accidentally drew this a little bit too long. I drew this at 3.5 instead of 3. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to type L, enter, grab this bottom right point, and we are going to make that 3 tab 60. So that if you've drawn this correctly, unlike me, you will create this 4-inch line here. And then you'll be able to just take a line, start at this top point, and just bring it straight down, just like that. Now, we need to offset this. If we look at our assignment, we need to offset this by 0.5 towards the inside. So there's a couple ways to do that. Well, you're going to have to use the offset tool, but you can select a line. And remember from the title block video, if I want to select just one line, I can either click once, and remember, you're not dragging. If you click and drag, it's going to be this weird selection thing. which does work, but it's more for like selecting around circles and stuff like that, curves. So if we just click one time, drag up to the left, click again, as long as we're touching that line anywhere, it's going to select the whole thing. If I click up to the left and I drag to the right, I have to encompass the entire line for me to be able to select it. So just remember, blue, if you're dragging to the right, you get a blue box. If you're dragging to the left, you get a green box. And it's just two different ways that the selection tool can work. So blue, you have to encompass the entire line. If you don't, then you'll only select what it's entirely encompassing. If you want to select more than just that line, if I want to select this line, and this line, I can use this left drag, just touch those three lines, and then all three will be selected. Just as a reminder. So let's just try to offset this just using the offset command. So we're going to highlight a line here. We are going to come up to the modify toolbar, and the bottom right icon, go ahead and click offset. Alternatively, you can type O enter to enter this command. And it's going to ask us, so highlight that line, go into the offset tool, and it's going to ask us to specify an offset distance. So we're going to type 0.5, enter. And now before we click again, it is allowing us to offset that line in or out. So we're going to go ahead and offset that in. And before you click escape, if you click escape, you'll have to enter the command again. But now you're still inside the offset command. See, you don't have your crosshairs, you just have your little pick box. That's what they call that little square. So we can come down here, select this line, drag it in and click, select this line, drag it in and click, and do the same all the way around. The problem with that, though, if we look and compare what we have, if we compare what we have in our drawing to what we have in the assignment, it's a little bit different. So in order to make it look the exact same, we're going to have to use a tool called trim. And the trim tool, a cool way to add, you can click it here, just up here in the modify toolbar. Another cool way to do this is type TR enter enter, and that will allow you to just, you don't have to drag. You can drag, but generally I'll just click. And you can also like click and then move your mouse and click again, and just trim off all the lines that you don't want there. Now we have a complementary shape to what we had before. What I would do in this situation is do something called a join. So to do a join, and it eliminates the step, you won't have to trim. So what I would do is, we have our external shape, our perimeter, select the whole entire shape and type join, J-O-I-N, enter. So the join command takes all of those individual lines and it turns them into what's called a polyline. Polylines in AutoCAD, I'll talk a little bit more about them as we get farther into the class. But polylines in AutoCAD are really nice to work with because it gives you these pick points at endpoints, and then it gives you these like midpoint pulls that allow you to manipulate the shape a little bit. So you don't have to do this on yours, but I'm just going to show you. If we just click that middle button, that middle pull, we can just click and drag that kind of any direction. So we can manipulate this shape as a polyline in different ways than we could if they were just single lines. Because before we did that, when all of these were just lines, we have a pick point in the middle, but it just allows you to, basically it just allows you to pick it up and move it around without entering the move command, which would be M enter. So I'm going to go ahead, highlight the whole thing, type join enter. Now highlight it, and notice when I highlight just a little bit with a left drag, it'll highlight the entire thing because now it's one connected polyline, not individual lines. So it's all one object inside the software. So now I'm going to type O enter for offset. or you can grab the offset command up in the modify toolbar, type 0.5, enter. And now you see with the polyline, you can offset the entire line and not have to trim. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to click towards the inside, click once. Remember, we're still in our offset command, so I'm going to click escape. And from here, we are ready for dimensions. So you can see when we compare, we're good to go here. Now, to do dimensions, we're going to come up and grab our dimension tool, just like this. Just come up and just click this dimension. This is kind of like a quote, like smart dimension. It'll kind of, it's somewhat intuitive. You know, you can do angles and sometimes like you can do diameters, but generally speaking, like I would use this to pull a linear dimension, something like this. And if you want like some sort of special dimension, like a radius or a diameter or an angle or something like that, I would just come into this little drop down in the annotation toolbar and grab it from here. So alternatively, you could type DIM enter, and that will get you that'll give you the same tool as if you just clicked this button right here. So let's grab our dimension and click the top point and then click the bottom point. Pull it out to the left just a little bit. And before you click anything, just type 0.75 enter. And what that has done is it has moved. When we click on our dimension, we have these little pull points where we can manipulate, we can move the dimension around. And we can also, we can move it here and we can move it with these. If you move from these points will actually move where your leaders end. So we don't want to mess with those once we have them placed. So when I typed 0.75 enter, that just placed this dimension 0.75 inches off of where we pulled it from. So that is how we're going to get nice even dimensions all the way around the part. What's cool about AutoCAD is the last command that we've executed is saved in memory. So while you can come up here and click dimension again and just do another dimension from here to here, drag it down before you click and then click 0.75 enter. But instead of doing, if say I X'd out of that dimension, so now I'm not in my dimension tool anymore, I can't pull a dimension. Because that was the last tool that I used, I could just click the space bar and now I'm back in my dimension tool. And it's the same thing as if we did an offset. So if I offset this towards the outside and I click escape, if I click space bar, the offset command is the command that comes up, not the dimension tool. So just kind of a fun fact. So let's go back into our dimension tool. Remember, now I played around with the offset tool, I had to go click the dimension tool again. And we are going to grab this 3-inch dimension from here to here. And you can do the same thing, even though it's on an angle, I can type 0.75 enter. And then we're going to grab a dimension from here to this corner. And instead of dragging it diagonally like this, we're just going to go straight up. And if you go to the left of the leftmost leader line, it'll go back to the angle. And as you drag it around, you see it'll kind of like try to intuitively dimension what it thinks you're trying to dimension here. So we're just going to come straight up and type 0.75 enter. Now with this dimension here, what I like to do, it's a little bit different from how it's shown in your assignment drawing. But what I'd like to have you do is highlight that 0.5 dimension, click once at this pick point right here, and bring it straight up until you see the little perpendicular icon. That's like the little L-shaped icon right there. Once it snaps to that top line and it has the little perpendicular symbol, go ahead and left click. And that just kind of makes your dimension look nice and clean, instead of having it dimensioned over top of the part. depending on the company that you're working for and what kind of product you're designing, they may want you to have dimensions through the part, and some companies don't. Some companies don't like that. It's all really stylistic, depending on who set it up, and also what your manufacturer's like as well. But personally, I kind of like to pull the dimensions off the part, so that's what we're going to do there. Plus, it's kind of good experience to know that you can do that in the first place. So last dimension that we need on our actual shape here is that 60-degree dimension. So this is what we talked about before. I'm going to come up to my angular dimension right here, click that once, and now I'm going to click this bottom horizontal line, and then I'm also going to click, oh, am I in? Not in my angular dimension. There we go. I'm going to click my bottom horizontal line, and then this 60-degree line that we had drawn. And now, similar to how this 0.5-inch dimension was working, it'll try to intuitively guess what angle we're trying to dimension here. So if you pull it up to the left, you're going to get 120 degrees. If you pull it kind of out this direction, you're going to get 60. You're going to get 120 down here, and you're going to get 60 down here. So let's just pull it straight out to the left, and kind of just like, I don't know, snap it somewhere near, like you'll get different lines here. So like, I don't know, this is like perpendicular. That looks pretty good placement. That looks pretty close to how we have it right here. If you want to manipulate that, you can always click on it and kind of play around with the positioning. But that looks pretty good to me. Now from here, let's go back to our paper space. So down the bottom left, we're going to click sheet 1. And from here, we want to throw a couple dimensions on here. I just want to make sure that your title block is drawn according to the instruction. So we're going to go dimension, start at the very bottom point to the top point. And you can drag this out, maybe 1¼ inches, 1.25, maybe even a little farther than that. Maybe you can eyeball this. That's okay. I think this right here, this is about 1.5 inches. I'm going to grab my dimension tool again. Bottom left to this line right here. We're going to drag that out. It's okay that they're overlapping right now. I'm going to show you how to fix that. And then we're going to do this final one right here, just like that. Now, from here, and in lab 2, I'm going to show you how to edit this in your title block. For now, I just want to show you how to change your dimension schemes, text size, that kind of thing, before we go ahead and plot. And it's going to clean all this up. And we're also going to eliminate some of those extra zeros that we don't see in our assignment. So from here, anywhere on the screen, as long as you're inside AutoCAD, you can type in DIMSTY. So that's DIMSTY, enter. That to me is the easiest way to get to it. Alternatively, up in the toolbar, you can click annotation, this little drop down. And right here, the second one is dimension style. So you can just click that. And that also brings up the DIMSTY manager. So remember, I think the easiest way to do it is just DIMSTY, enter. Under standard, you're just going to go to modify. And I'm going to change a few of these options. So under symbols and arrows, both the first and the second, I want you to change both of those to architectural tick. Arrowhead size, change that to 0.125. Then go over to text, change your text height to 0.125. And then under primary units, change your precision to 1 decimal place. You don't want it to just be 0. You want to have 1 decimal place, just like that. I'm going to click OK. Click close. And we can see all of our dimensions got a little bit smaller. We changed from arrows to these nice little tick marks, which are a little easier to see. And then down here, by our title block dimensions, these are nice and cleaned up. So that way they're not overlapping, they're not outside the page. And so it does look a little bit different from how we have this dimensioned in the assignment. But with the new curriculum that I'm moving to, I like this dimensioning scheme a little bit better, and it's going to give us a little bit more exposure to some of the settings in the software, but it's also going to, as we get farther in the class, there's one or two parts in AutoCAD that have a lot of dimensions on them, and it's going to make those a lot cleaner looking to work with the dimensions as you're going through. So from here, we're all done with lab 1. The last thing we have to do is plot it. So from Paperspace, you can either type plot, enter, just like that, or you can right click sheet 1, click plot, and then the only thing we have to do here is click page setup. We're just going to right here, we're going to click hack title block. This is what we set up in the other video, and nothing else needs to change at all. We're just going to click OK. We already have you already have your DWG saved. You will not have this submission. Actually, here, let's go like this. I'm in the wrong folder. I'm going to go into CAD 154 course, my student folder, go into lab 1, submissions, and I see I don't have a PDF in here. So you're going to name this the exact same thing as your DWG, which if you look in the top left, your little tab here in AutoCAD shows you the DWG name if you forgot it. So it's going to be lab 1 dash sheet 1 dash your initials. Go ahead and click save. And now I can go ahead, open up my submissions folder. I now have lab 1 sheet 1. I can double click on that. And here is the file that I just plotted. It's perfectly centered. It's horizontal. You don't have to rotate it or anything like that. All of your dimensions look great. And make sure your title block is filled out. I know that was the first thing we did. I just want to remind you to take a look at it. And then this is what you're going to go ahead and submit to the Dropbox. So I'm going to show you that right now. That takes just a second. So go into your MyHack and D2L portal. There's two ways to do it. You can just go into Dropbox here. Actually, let me view this as a student. So that's exactly what you're looking at. So this is what you will view as a student. What I like to do is come into content, go to lab 1, and so there's so I call the assignment like what you grab lab 1 assignment. For some reason, D2L calls the Dropbox assignment. So to get to the Dropbox from here, you just click lab 1, assignments. Please place your lab 1 in the drawing in this folder. You go ahead and click this. And from here, you can just drag and drop. So I have my submission ready. Move this out of the way. Zoom's kind of getting in the way here. Grab this, drop it in, submit to Dropbox. And then I will get a notification that you have submitted that, and I can go in and give you a grade. And you can click on it if you want, just to make sure that it's there. And it is, it looks good, and you're good to go. Alrighty. Good luck with the lab, and I will see you in class.